They say karma's a real piece of work. Turns out she's also a home invader who got a key from my husband while I was in a coma. The first thing that hit me, even before the scent of sandalwood incense tried to suffocate my still healing lungs, was the utter silence. 3 months. 3 months of beeping machines, hushed hospital whispers, and the dull throb of my own broken body. Now, just the eerie quiet of what used to be my penthouse. My luxury downtown Seattle apartment, the one Julian and I had meticulously designed, was now radiating a vibe that screamed spiritual retreat rather than home of a high-powered criminal defense attorney. And let's be clear, my idea of a spiritual retreat involves a strong espresso and a stack of legal briefs, not whatever new age nonsense was brewing in my absence. I'm Vivian Holloway, 39, and if you've ever had the misfortune of needing a criminal defense lawyer in Seattle, you've probably heard my name. I dismantle cases with the precision of a neurosurgeon and the sarcasm of a late-night talk show host. I've seen it all. Desperate clients, corrupt cops, and husbands who swear they were just holding hands with the stripper. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for walking into my own home and finding it redecorated by a woman who apparently believed in chakra alignment and questionable interior design choices. My accident, a delightful little rendezvous with a runaway semi-truck on I-5, had left me in a coma. 3 months. A blink in the grand scheme of the universe, but apparently enough time for my husband, Julian, 42, a software developer whose emotional range peaked at mildly inconvenienced, to decide I was merely taking an extended vacation. A vacation he clearly thought was the perfect opportunity to upgrade his personal life. "Vivian, are you sure you want to go straight home?" Chloe, my ever-efficient assistant, asked, her voice laced with concern as she helped me out of the car. Chloe, bless her heart, had been my rock. She'd navigated hospital bureaucracy, kept my firm from imploding, and probably prevented Julian from selling my prized collection of first-edition legal texts on eBay. We could go to a hotel just for tonight, ease back into things. I just shook my head, a slight tremor still lingering in my limbs. "No, Chloe. I need to see it. I need to confront whatever this is." I'd already seen the Instagram posts. Chloe, ever the detective, had discreetly shown me Bethany's feed. Bethany, 28, a lifestyle influencer with a smile as fake as her organic smoothie recipes, had been documenting her journey of gratitude from my living room. My Persian rug, my custom-built bookshelves, even my favorite vintage bar cart, all repurposed as backdrops for her mindfulness moments and digital detox tutorials. The audacity was almost admirable. Almost. The police, bless their procedural hearts, had been less than helpful. "Ma'am, there's no sign of forced entry," the officer had stated, his voice flat, after I'd called 911 in a haze of confusion and indignation. "If she has a key, it's a civil matter." A civil matter? My entire life had been turned into a civil matter while I was fighting for my actual life. "I have a key to hell, officer," I muttered under my breath, and they're about to meet it. Julian, my husband of 12 years, had always been a man of logic, not emotion. He'd meticulously tracked our finances, optimized our smart home system, and probably had a spreadsheet for our anniversary gifts. But apparently, his definition of caring for everything while I was unconscious included giving a spare key to his new consultant of wellness. Bethany wasn't just some random fling, she was a full-blown replacement, parading around in my life, literally. As I took in the scene, a wave of nausea, not from my injuries but from pure disgust, washed over me. My beloved law books, the ones I'd collected since law school, were gone. In their place, a stack of self-help books with titles like Unleash Your Inner Zen and The Power of Positive Affirmations. I wanted to laugh, but the sound that escaped was more of a choked gasp. This wasn't just an affair. This was an act of cultural appropriation against my very soul. "Chloe," I said, my voice dangerously calm, "did you notice anything else missing?" Chloe, who had been meticulously scanning the room, her eyes narrowing at a crystal grid on my coffee table, nodded slowly. "Your vintage record player is gone, Vivian. And is that a kombucha brewing kit in the kitchen?" A kombucha brewing kit. In my kitchen. The same kitchen where I once hosted a dinner party that ended with a Supreme Court justice doing karaoke. This wasn't just an insult. It was a declaration of war. But the real gut punch wasn't the incense or the kombucha. It was the discovery that Julian hadn't just used my vegetative state. His words, not mine. And oh, how those words would haunt him. To move his mistress in. He'd used it to try and declare me legally incapacitated. To assume full control of our assets, including my stake in the law firm I'd built from the ground up. Bethany wasn't just the mistress. She was his accomplice, helping to paint a picture of me as irreversibly unstable, even before the accident. They were trying to erase me, legally and personally. He tried to what? Chloe whispered, her face paling as I relayed the details I'd pieced together from hushed conversations with my doctors, and a quick, illicit glance at my medical records. The doctors, bless their Hippocratic oaths, had been vague, but the legal implications were crystal clear to me. Julian was trying to pull a fast one, a very, very fast and very illegal one. My mind, still recovering from the trauma, suddenly sharpened. The fog lifted, replaced by a cold, clear fury. This wasn't just about a cheating husband. This was about a calculated attempt to steal my identity, my career, my entire future. And they thought I was too broken to fight back. "Chloe," I said, a slow, predatory smile spreading across my face, "cancel all my recovery appointments for the next few weeks. Clear my schedule, and get me everything you can find on Julian's finances, his company's recent dealings, and every single social media post Bethany has ever made. Every single one." Chloe, seeing the fire in my eyes, nodded, a matching glint appearing in her own. "Consider it done, Vivian." "What's the plan?" "The plan, Chloe," I replied, walking over to the window overlooking the glittering Seattle skyline, "is to turn Julian's life into a legal dumpster fire and Bethany's influencer career into a meme that will haunt her for eternity." They thought I was out of the game. But the queen of Seattle crime just woke up, and the first thing I'm going to do is put one of them behind bars and the other on the internet's most wanted list for fraud. This isn't just a divorce. It's a hostile takeover, and I'm coming for everything. The question wasn't if they would pay, but how spectacularly I would make them crash and burn. Julian had always loved his metrics. Well, I was about to give him some new ones, the metrics of his utter downfall. And Bethany. She was about to learn that gratitude doesn't pay the bills when you're facing a defamation lawsuit. What kind of fool tries to steal from a criminal defense lawyer? A very, very foolish one. And I was about to teach them a lesson in consequences that even a wellness guru couldn't meditate away. The show was about to begin, and I had the starring role. The scent of sandalwood, a cloying reminder of Bethany's unwelcome presence, still clung to the air, but now it fueled a different kind of energy within me. Not the fragile weariness of a coma survivor, but the cold, calculating resolve of a predator. Julian and Bethany had mistaken my vulnerability for weakness, my recovery for incapacitation. They were about to learn that a wounded lioness is far more dangerous than one merely sleeping. My injuries might have slowed my body, but they had sharpened my mind into a weapon. "So, Chloe," I began. The next morning, my voice crisp despite the lingering phantom aches. "Let's talk strategy. Julian's move to declare me legally incapacitated? That's not just a breach of marital trust. It's a textbook case of attempted financial fraud and elder abuse, even if I'm only 39. The legal system tends to frown upon spouses trying to seize assets from a comatose partner. It's a bold play, I'll give him that, but utterly stupid when played against someone who literally writes the book on legal loopholes. Chloe, already at my kitchen island, had transformed it into a war room. Laptops hummed, documents were neatly stacked, and a whiteboard displayed a nascent web of names and dates. She was a marvel, anticipating my needs before I even voiced them. I've started pulling Julian's company records. Software development, right? Lots of contracts, intellectual property, potential for creative accounting. Her eyes twinkled with a shared understanding of the dark arts of corporate finance. "Exactly," I affirmed, taking a sip of the strong black coffee Chloe had brewed. A welcome antidote to Bethany's herbal teas. And Bethany. Her wellness brand is built on an image, I suspect, as carefully constructed and as hollow as a cheap meditation bowl. We need to dissect that image. Every sponsored post, every authentic moment, every testimonial. We're looking for inconsistencies, exaggerations, and anything that smells remotely like false advertising or, better yet, outright fraud. The next few days were a blur of intense focus. My penthouse, once a sanctuary, became my command center. I moved with a renewed purpose. The physical therapy exercises I was supposed to be doing replaced by mental gymnastics, dissecting legal statutes and crafting arguments. My body might have been healing, but my mind was already performing intricate surgical strikes. "Vivian, look at this," Chloe exclaimed one afternoon, her finger hovering over a spreadsheet. Julian's company, Synapse Innovations, made a series of significant transfers to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands just 2 months ago. Coincidentally, around the same time he started pushing for your incapacitation hearing. A cold smile touched my lips. Coincidence is a word for people who don't understand patterns, Chloe. That's not a coincidence. That's a breadcrumb trail. He was trying to stash assets, knowing a divorce would be messy. He assumed I wouldn't wake up, or if I did, I'd be too disoriented to notice. He underestimated my stubbornness and his own predictable greed. We delved deeper. Bethany's Instagram, a seemingly endless scroll of sun-drenched selfies and inspirational quotes, began to reveal its cracks. She claims to be a certified holistic nutritionist, Chloe pointed out, but her certification comes from an online course that costs $99 and requires no prior medical knowledge. And her exclusive retreat photos, they're all from public parks and rented Airbnb properties, not the private sanctuary she advertises. And the sanctuary she was so grateful for? I added, pointing to a photo of Bethany doing a yoga pose on my living room rug. That would be my apartment, which I assure you was never intended as a backdrop for questionable health advice. The humor in the situation was acidic, a bitter laugh bubbling up at the sheer audacity of it all. Julian, the man who meticulously tracked every penny, had fallen for a woman who was essentially selling snake oil from my living room. The irony was a delicious poison. The suspense built with each new discovery. Julian's carefully constructed image as a tech mogul was crumbling under the weight of suspicious financial transactions. Bethany's authentic brand was revealing itself as a house of cards built on borrowed aesthetics and dubious claims. It was like watching a slow-motion car crash, except I was the one orchestrating the collision. "We need to connect Bethany directly to Julian's financial dealings," I instructed, pacing my living room, now stripped of Bethany's mindfulness clutter. Chloe had, with great satisfaction, packed up every crystal, every stick of incense, and every self-help book, depositing them in a charity bin. If she was complicit in the asset hiding, even indirectly, that elevates her from a mere mistress to a co-conspirator. And that, my friend, is where the real fun begins. We found it. A series of large, unexplained payments from Julian's offshore account to a shell corporation registered under a distant relative of Bethany's. The payments were disguised as consulting fees for digital marketing strategies. The dates aligned perfectly with Julian's attempts to declare me incapacitated. It was a smoking gun, wrapped in a bow of deceit. He was paying her, not just for her companionship, I mused, a chilling realization dawning, but for her active participation in his scheme. She wasn't just using my apartment, she was being paid to help him steal my life. That's not just betrayal, that's criminal enterprise. My legal team, a formidable group of sharp minds from my firm, was brought into the loop, sworn to absolute secrecy. Their initial shock quickly turned to a fierce determination to help me dismantle Julian and Bethany. They knew my reputation, and they knew that when Vivian Holloway decided to go to war, there were no survivors. "Vivian, the divorce papers are drafted," my lead associate, Marcus, informed me, his voice grim. "They're comprehensive. We're going for everything. Marital assets, punitive damages for emotional distress, and a separate civil suit for financial fraud against Julian and Bethany." "Excellent," I replied, reviewing the documents with a hawk's eye. "And the media angle?" We want this to be a public spectacle, not for vanity, but for leverage. Julian values his reputation more than anything. Bethany's entire career is built on public perception. We hit them where it hurts the most. The plan was meticulously crafted. A multi-pronged attack, a devastating divorce petition, a civil lawsuit alleging fraud and conspiracy, and a carefully orchestrated media leak that would expose Julian's duplicity and Bethany's charade to the world. The goal wasn't just to win, it was to obliterate. They thought I was out of commission, I told my team, my voice resonating with a quiet power. They thought they could simply erase me and rewrite my story. But I'm back, and I'm writing the final chapter. And trust me, it's going to be a bestseller of betrayal and comeuppance. The day arrived. Tuesday, 10th of September. The same day I had returned home, still scarred, still fragile, but now armed with an arsenal of evidence and a burning desire for justice. Julian would receive the papers at his office, a place where he felt most secure. Bethany would wake up to a flurry of notifications that would shatter her carefully curated online world. The Queen of Seattle crime was not just awake. She was ready to rain down a storm. The legal papers were served precisely at 9 a.m., a Tuesday, just as Julian was settling into his corner office at Synapse Innovations, probably reviewing his latest quarterly reports. I pictured his face, the carefully constructed mask of corporate calm crumbling as he read the words, "Petition for dissolution of marriage," and "Complaint for fraudulent conveyance and conspiracy." Oh, to be a fly on that wall. Or better yet, a drone with a camera feed directly to my living room. A girl can dream. But Julian's shock was merely the appetizer. The main course was about to be served to Bethany. Chloe, with her uncanny ability to navigate the digital underworld, had scheduled a series of anonymous tips to major gossip sites and tech blogs, all timed to drop simultaneously with the legal filings. The narrative was simple, yet devastating. Renowned Seattle attorney returns from coma to find husband's mistress living in her home, uncovers massive financial fraud and conspiracy. It was a headline designed to go viral, a social media atom bomb aimed squarely at Bethany's carefully curated online persona. "Vivian, it's happening," Chloe announced, her eyes glued to her tablet, a triumphant grin spreading across her face. "The first article just dropped on Seattle Buzz, and Tech Insider is running a piece on Julian's suspicious offshore dealings, linking it to your firm's investigation." I leaned back, a genuine smile finally gracing my lips. Excellent. Let the internet do what it does best. Expose hypocrisy and destroy careers. Bethany will learn that influencing isn't just about pretty filters, it's about maintaining a shred of credibility. And Julian will discover that his metrics are about to plummet into negative territory. The beauty of this plan, the truly American genius of it, was its multifaceted approach. We weren't just going for a divorce. We were weaponizing every aspect of their lives against them. Julian's reputation as a tech visionary? Gone, replaced by headlines of corporate malfeasance. Bethany's wellness brand? About to be rebranded as fraudulent lifestyle guru. It was poetic justice, served with a side of public humiliation. My phone, which had been mostly silent for 3 months, suddenly exploded with notifications. Colleagues, friends, even distant relatives, all expressing shock, support, and a healthy dose of schadenfreude. "Vivian, I always knew Julian was a snake," read one text from a fellow attorney. "But this is a whole new level of dumpster fire." The solidarity was heartwarming in a darkly comedic way. The first public reaction came swiftly. Bethany, in a desperate attempt to control the narrative, posted a tearful Instagram story, claiming she was a victim of a misunderstanding and that she truly believed Julian and Vivian were separated. The internet, however, was not buying it. Screenshots of her sanctuary posts, taken from my living room, were already being juxtaposed with the news articles. The comments section became a battlefield of outrage and ridicule. "Girl, you were living in her house while she was in a coma. That's not a misunderstanding, that's a home invasion," one user quipped. Another added, "Her mindfulness moments were actually stealing someone else's life moments." Julian predictably went silent. His PR team, if he even had one left, was probably having a collective meltdown. A man who prided himself on control was now utterly out of it, his life unfolding in the public eye like a bad reality show. The irony of him trying to declare me unstable while he was orchestrating this elaborate charade was not lost on me. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about reclaiming my narrative. They had tried to write me out of my own story, to paint me as a tragic figure, a legal ghost. But I was here, very much alive, and ready to remind everyone that I was the protagonist, not a footnote. The humor in it was that they had underestimated the sheer grit of a woman who had faced down hardened criminals in courtrooms for years. A little marital betrayal and financial fraud? Child's play. The preparation continued. We meticulously documented every single piece of evidence, cross-referencing Julian's financial statements with Bethany's lavish spending habits, which, conveniently, had spiked around the time of my accident. We found receipts for designer clothes, expensive spa treatments, and even a down payment on a luxury car, all made in Bethany's name, but with funds traceable back to Julian's offshore accounts. It was a paper trail so obvious, it practically screamed guilty. He really thought he was untouchable, didn't he? Chloe remarked, shaking her head as she organized a stack of bank statements. The arrogance is astounding. Arrogance is a common side effect of unchecked privilege, Chloe, I replied, a smirk playing on my lips. And it's a fatal flaw when you're going up against someone who knows how to exploit every single weakness in the system. He built his empire on code. I built mine on exposing human fallibility. The upcoming court dates were set. The divorce hearing, the civil fraud case. It was going to be a spectacle. My legal team was buzzing with anticipation. We had the evidence, the public sentiment, and a protagonist who was not only a brilliant lawyer but also a compelling wronged figure. It was the kind of story that captivated America. The underdog rising, the villain exposed, the justice served cold. I spent hours rehearsing my testimony, not just for the court, but for the cameras I knew would be there. Every word, every pause, every expression would be carefully calibrated. I wasn't just presenting facts. I was crafting a narrative, a performance that would ensure maximum impact and maximum humiliation for Julian and Bethany. This wasn't just about winning a case. It was about winning the war for public opinion. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place when one of Julian's disgruntled former employees, emboldened by the news, anonymously contacted my firm. He provided internal documents detailing Julian's unethical business practices, including the deliberate underreporting of profits and the use of company funds for personal expenses, all funneled through the same offshore accounts. This wasn't just about my money. It was about a pattern of corporate malfeasance that would bring down his entire empire. Well, Julian, I murmured to myself, looking out at the city lights, you wanted to expand your social network. Congratulations, you're about to become the most infamous man in Seattle. And Bethany, your sanctuary is about to become a very public prison of your own making. The stage was set. The players were in position. And the curtain was about to rise on the most epic legal showdown Seattle had ever witnessed. They thought they had seen the last of Vivian Holloway. They were about to see her at her most magnificent and their most vulnerable. The courtroom, a familiar arena for me, felt different this time. Instead of defending a client, I was the one orchestrating the takedown. Every seat was filled, not just with legal professionals, but with reporters, curious onlookers, and even a few of Bethany's former followers who had come to witness the train wreck firsthand. Julian sat at the defense table, his face a carefully constructed mask of indignation, but I could see the tremor in his hands. Bethany, looking significantly less zen than her Instagram feed suggested, was beside him, her eyes darting nervously around the room. My opening statement was a masterclass in controlled fury and surgical precision. I laid out the timeline, the accident, the coma, Julian's swift move to declare me incapacitated, the illicit key, Bethany's wellness sanctuary in my home, and the meticulously detailed financial fraud. I presented the evidence like a seasoned chef presenting a Michelin star meal, each course perfectly timed, each flavor designed to shock and awe. Your Honor? I concluded, my voice resonating with a quiet power that commanded attention. This isn't just a case of marital infidelity. This is a calculated, cold-hearted scheme to defraud a woman who was fighting for her life, to steal her assets, and to erase her very identity. Mr. Julian, sobrinom do Julian, and Ms. Bethany, sobrinom de Bethany, believed they were above the law. Today, we prove them wrong. The first witness was Chloe. She testified with unwavering loyalty, detailing Julian's attempts to block my access to my own medical records, his sudden interest in my financial portfolio, and the suspicious timing of Bethany's move-in. She even presented screenshots of Bethany's Instagram posts, projected onto a large screen, showing her meditating on my custom rug, sipping kombucha in my kitchen, all while I was in a hospital bed. The murmurs in the courtroom were deafening. Julian's lawyer, a slick, overconfident type who clearly hadn't anticipated the depth of my preparation, tried to dismiss it as a misunderstanding between spouses. I, however, had a different take. "A misunderstanding, counsel," I interjected, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "Is that what we call it when a husband gives his mistress the keys to his comatose wife's penthouse and then tries to steal her fortune? Because where I come from, we call that grand larceny and emotional terrorism." The judge had to gavel for order. Then came the financial evidence. My team presented the offshore accounts, the shell corporations, the consulting fees to Bethany's relative. The numbers didn't lie. Julian's face, which had been pale, now turned a shade of sickly green. He tried to explain it away as legitimate business expenses. But the former employee, our anonymous informant, testified via video link, detailing how Julian had systematically siphoned funds and inflated invoices. The look on Julian's face was priceless, a mix of shock, betrayal, and utter defeat. He had been hoisted by his own petard, and it was glorious. Bethany's testimony was a masterclass in self-destruction. She tried to maintain her Zen persona, but under cross-examination, her carefully constructed facade crumbled. I presented her holistic nutritionist certificate, revealing it was from a $99 online course. I showed her exclusive retreat photos, then presented evidence that they were taken in public parks. When I asked her, "Ms. Sobrinom de Bethany, did you truly believe it was authentic to build your brand on another woman's tragedy, from her own home, while she was fighting for her life?" she stammered, unable to form a coherent answer. The courtroom erupted in a collective gasp of indignation. The judge, a no-nonsense woman who had seen it all, listened intently. The evidence was overwhelming. The fraud was undeniable. The betrayal was palpable. Julian and Bethany had walked into a legal ambush, and they hadn't even seen it coming. They had underestimated the power of a woman scorned, especially one with a law degree and a killer instinct. The verdict came swiftly. Julian was found liable for massive financial fraud, ordered to pay me punitive damages that would effectively bankrupt him, and faced a criminal investigation into his corporate dealings. His company, Synapse Innovations, was now in freefall, its stock plummeting, its reputation in tatters. Bethany was found liable for defamation and complicity in the fraud, her wellness brand utterly destroyed, her social media presence a wasteland of hateful comments and mockery. She would be paying me for a very long time, and her career as an influencer was officially over. But the real satisfaction wasn't just in the money or the legal victory. It was in the public spectacle. Julian, the man who valued his image above all else, was now a pariah, his name synonymous with greed and betrayal. Bethany, the woman who craved validation, was now a cautionary tale, her face plastered across the internet as the ultimate side chick who got what was coming to her. Their fall from grace was swift, brutal, and utterly hilarious. I watched them leave the courtroom, Julian looking like a ghost, Bethany openly weeping, her carefully applied makeup streaking down her face. They avoided eye contact, their arrogance replaced by abject humiliation. It was a beautiful sight. My new normal was glorious. My penthouse, now cleansed of all traces of spiritual enlightenment, felt like home again. My law firm, stronger than ever, was thriving. And I, Vivian Holloway, was not just a survivor. I was a victor. The accident had taken a piece of me, but the betrayal had given me something far more valuable: an unshakable resolve and a wicked sense of humor. The best part? Julian's attempts to declare me incapacitated were now being used against him in the criminal investigation, painting him as a manipulative sociopath. The irony was so thick you could cut it with a knife. He had tried to bury me, but all he did was plant a seed for my magnificent comeback. The dust settled, or rather, the digital fallout slowly dissipated, leaving behind a new landscape. My penthouse, once a battleground, was now just home. The scent of sandalwood was long gone, replaced by the crisp, clean smell of fresh flowers, and, occasionally, the lingering aroma of the artisanal coffee Chloe now insisted on brewing. Life, it seemed, had a peculiar way of course-correcting, often with the subtlety of a freight train. Julian Sterling, the man who once thought he was too clever for the universe, was now a case study in hubris. His company, Synapse Innovations, imploded faster than a tech startup with a bad algorithm. The criminal investigation, fueled by the evidence from our civil suit and the testimony of his disgruntled ex-employee, led to charges of corporate fraud and embezzlement. He wasn't just bankrupt, he was facing serious jail time. The last I heard, he was trying to negotiate a plea deal, probably offering to code the prison's cafeteria menu system in exchange for a lighter sentence. The irony? Delicious. He'd wanted to erase me, but he'd only succeeded in erasing himself from polite society and possibly from the free world. Bethany Hayes, the wellness guru, fared no better. Her carefully constructed online empire crumbled into a digital wasteland. Her Instagram comments became a permanent monument to public scorn, a place where haters, as she'd once called them, gathered to roast her with the ferocity of a Thanksgiving turkey. Her wellness brand was now a punchline, synonymous with fraud and hypocrisy. The civil judgment against her meant she'd be working off her debt to me for the foreseeable future, probably selling essential oils to unsuspecting tourists in a strip mall kiosk, far from her imagined private sanctuaries. She'd tried to steal my life, but all she got was a lifetime of public ridicule and debt. Some people just aren't cut out for villainy, bless their hearts. And me? Vivian Holloway. I emerged from the wreckage not just intact, but upgraded. The coma had been a forced reset, a brutal but effective way to clear out the emotional clutter. The betrayal, a painful lesson in human nature. I'd always been good at my job, a shark in the courtroom, but now I had a new edge, a sharper wit, and a profound appreciation for the absurd. My firm thrived, taking on more high-profile cases, often with a newfound, almost legendary reputation for ruthlessness. My colleagues looked at me with a mixture of awe and slight fear, which, let's be honest, was a significant improvement over pity. I learned that sometimes the universe sends you a curveball, or in my case, a semi-truck, not to break you, but to show you what you're truly made of. And apparently I'm made of steel, sarcasm, and an unyielding commitment to poetic justice. I also learned that forgiveness is highly overrated, especially when revenge tastes so much sweeter, like a perfectly aged single malt. My personal life? It's quieter. No more frantic attempts to maintain a picture-perfect suburban life that was clearly a mirage. I've embraced the chaos, the imperfections. I've started a book club, not for self-help gurus, but for women who appreciate a good thriller and a strong Cabernet. I even tried a yoga class, just to see what all the fuss was about. Turns out, I'm still terrible at it, but at least I'm doing it on my mat, in my space, without a fraudster trying to monetize my suffering. The biggest takeaway? Never underestimate a woman who's been to hell and back, especially if she's got a law degree and a Wi-Fi connection. They say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I say what doesn't kill you gives you excellent material for a stand-up routine, or in my case, a devastating legal strategy. I didn't just survive. I redefined what it meant to thrive. So, to Julian and Bethany, wherever they are, I offer this final thought. You taught me that sometimes the best way to heal a broken heart is to break a few rules and maybe a few reputations along the way. And that, my friends, is a lesson I'll carry with me, always. My life became a reality show I never auditioned for, but damn, I nailed the finale.